This is a Viva PR podcast.
Just because we're marketing a technical product doesn't mean that we're not just marketing to people. People forget that. It's about how can we communicate something in a corporate way that's professional but also doesn't take yourself too seriously. I'm just not a big fan of looking at competitors because you're looking backwards, you're not looking forwards. In an agency, when you're pitching to a client, you have to be bold, you have to be brave, and you have to take risks. Bravery without strategy is reckless.
Welcome to PR in the Real World. How do you make steel doors exciting? How do you cope when life throws you a curveball? And how do you make sure you give room and budget for the more off-the-wall ideas to flourish and pay off? Well, we'll answer all these questions and more in the company of today's guest, Sarah Cooper, the Marketing Director at Strongdor. Now, Sarah's been on quite a journey, from launching her own agency while still at university to helping Strongdor establish its business in the United States this year. And along the way, she's earned a reputation for innovative, real-world PR and marketing. She has a knack of turning challenges into opportunities. It's definitely worth sticking around for. You'll pick up some really interesting tips. Shall we crack on? So, Sarah, thank you for joining us in deepest, darkest Rosendale. I'd like to start, if you could, just tell us a little bit about your journey, what led you to this role at Strongdor.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much for inviting me. Gosh, where do I start? So I've had quite an interesting sort of journey, really, even before my career. Not a lot of people will know this, but I actually fell pregnant at 14, gave birth to my son, who's now 20, makes me feel old, when I was 15. And I think a lot of the drive, determination, and kind of career path I've taken has been because of that. I don't know, people listening to this may have had children young or realise that it can impact your career. But actually, it gave me a driving force and a reason to continue and to be the best I could. I had to provide for my new young family. So I was very lucky. I was living with my mum at the time, so I was able to go to university. So I went to university and loved it. I've always been in marketing, so I did marketing management degree. I'm very lucky that I have stuck with the degree that I did. And I was on my placement year. So my third year, I did a year's placement. And again, I'd had another child at this point. So I had two children and at university. So at 19, I had a second child. And I remember I was sat in a room. I had very little industry experience. And I was on placement. Somebody walked in, it was a farmer, and he said, "Who does marketing here?" And I sort of went, well, I suppose that's me. And he said, "Oh, do you do freelance?" Obviously, I didn't do freelance. But in that split second, I made a decision. And I said, absolutely. How can I help? I had absolutely zero idea what I was doing. I had no clue. And it was actually a wedding venue in Garstang. And so they invited me into the board and they said, look, can you do I think it was 1 day or 2 days a week, I can't remember. And they wanted everything from content writing, PR, everything. And I said, yep, absolutely. And went away and wrote a proposal that I'd never done in my entire life. And that was the start of my business. It was just one decision and I said yes to something. And so that was in my third year of university and I carried that on. So when I left university, I'd had a year of the business and I managed to build it up to a position where I didn't need to get a job. Got some great support from Lancaster University, which is the university I attended. And that was it. I left and set up the business. And having two young children, it gave me flexibility and the opportunity to do it. And I did it for 5 years. I absolutely loved it. Had some great clients. I worked with Lancaster University, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, some, for a young kind of person on that journey, some really great clients. But the one thing that triggered me to change was that I'd gone straight from university. I'd learned a lot by trial and error, by kind of research. And I wanted to learn from people better than me. I wanted to be around other people that had kind of walked the boards. And my children were growing up at this point. They were a bit older. They were in school. And I thought, no, I'm going to go into a career now and I'm going to go into an actual business to try and learn. So left it on its peak, absolutely loved it, but it was the right decision. And then I started my journey. So from that, I worked at an agency for sort of 2 or 3 years. Absolutely loved it. Sort of did similar things to what I was doing in my business. And then where I am now, which I've been in for about 10 years, is the crux of it really, the B2B marketing, manufacturing, technical marketing. And yeah, that's kind of brings us up to present day of two different roles, both of which were to do with doors, garage doors, roller shutters, and now I'm in steel doors. But yeah, that's present day, and now I'm marketing director of Strongdor.
So for those who aren't familiar, tell us about Strongdor and what sets the business apart.
Absolutely. So Strongdor are a steel door manufacturer. We are based in Morecambe. We have actually recently also expanded to Chicago in America, which is an incredible journey. We are very different, I think, within the industry. So, okay, we manufacture steel doors, okay? Not a very sexy product, right? How can you make steel doors exciting? But I think that's kind of my challenge with the business. That's why I love working for manufacturing businesses. And I think what really sets us apart is not just one thing. I remember I was sat in a boardroom one day and I was asked to list the USPs of the business. And I really struggled. I really struggled. And I sat there and I said, this was an external consultant asking me this question. Yeah. And I said, I don't think you understand. It's the Strongdor secret sauce. It's not just one thing. So I was tasked with going to explain what is a secret sauce. Like, what is it? You know, you can't just say your USP is a secret sauce, right? Yeah. So I was tasked with kind of, come on, tell me what that is. And so we actually developed our 101 Little Things campaign. And we actually wrote down, we went around every single department and looked at all of the things that make us different and make us better. And it's everything. It's about sweating the small stuff. And it's just really interesting about kind of looking at the staff as well, that they're all bought into the little things. You know, we've got an absolutely incredible team that are all passionate about making steel doors the best in the country and the world now. We've gone to the US. And it's just that passion and momentum that is not driven by micromanagement. It's driven by just a shared belief, really.
Yeah, they all kiss the badge.
Do you know what? I have my Strongdor water bottle in the car, and I thought, is that too product placement?
We'd have allowed that. Marketing in manufacturing and B2B sectors can often be traditional or even dull, may I say. But how do you approach bringing creativity into this space? You know, it can be quite difficult, I should imagine, quite a challenge.
Yeah, I think, I think people slip into the easy kind of, we know what we do, and we're a manufacturing business, so we do brochures or we do PR or whatever we do. And I think it's really easy, especially when people have been in a role or an industry for a long time, to sort of stick to what they know. Yeah. And you know, I have a big saying within my team that if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same results. And I think in order to bring creativity, you've got to be prepared to take risks, and you've got to be prepared to do things differently. And trial and error, really. Manufacturing, as an example, is often very technical products. Yeah. So, you know, you're selling that this hinge is better than that hinge, or this bolt is better than that, or welding versus whatever. And it's often quite hard things to communicate. But the crux of it is we've got to remember that just because we're marketing a technical product doesn't mean that we're not just marketing to people. And I just think people forget that. You know, whatever you're buying, you want to be entertained, you want to feel valued as a customer, you know, you want to be supported, you want to get good service, and you want to have a laugh. You know, we're all in here. We're not all here to work and that be it. We're here to, enjoy our lives. So I think if you have that mentality, then your marketing, your comms, your kind of customer relationships become about people rather than product, and the product just becomes informative and value add.
Yeah. So there's that idea of bringing entertainment as a form of creativity, and that brings awareness to the brand in its own way then.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we do some very crazy things. And we've kind of got a bit of a reputation for it, that what is Strongdor going to do next? We're often tagged in things on LinkedIn. I think somebody had this really quirky promo item, and I actually can't remember what it was, but it was one of our suppliers, and they actually tagged us and said, don't let Strongdor marketing team find out about this because they'll be absolutely all over it. And I think we've got a reputation for being different and being quirky. However, I think from the outside, people might just think we do lots of different crazy things and we don't think about why, and we don't see what we're trying to achieve. But one of the things in the background I'm really keen on is making sure that there is always purpose behind what we do. And the big motto for me for this year is bravery without strategy is reckless. Yeah. And someone said it to me, and I wish I could remember where. It was some sort of talk, maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, an exhibition, somebody said something. And it really resonates with me. We can all be brave. We can all come up with quirky, innovative ideas. But actually to make sure that achieves something. Yeah. That achieves increased revenue. It increases the EBITDA. Whatever that's going to do, it's not just a quirky, fun campaign. And it makes sure that there's actually kind of method in our madness, really.
Yeah, real impact in
exactly.
in what you're delivering. That sounds really interesting. I love that. Bravery without strategy is reckless. So can you go on and explain a little bit more about what that's all about?
We all know everybody around us is a marketeer, right?
Yeah.
Your gardener, your postman, whatever. And I think by having that kind of mentality and motto, it enables you to have a filter for ideas. So I welcome all ideas, and it allows me to say, okay, great, but what are we going to do with it? How's it going to achieve what we need to achieve? And what's the returns, versus the investment on it?
So that you can go back into the boardroom and stand behind these ideas and say, this is what we're looking to achieve from this campaign on the bottom line. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, do you know what? Even more than that, because I think, you asked me what was different about Strongdor, and I think one of the things is a serious trust within our EMT, our executive management team, in each other. So it's rare that I ever really have to justify these bold ideas because we are generating the return overall. And I think that it's about more so educating the team. So we've got quite a large team now in terms of marketing. We've just recruited another 3 in January, and it's making sure that mentality is through and through with everybody. So we have 3 pillars, which I say everything has to be in these pillars, and if it's not, I question why we're doing it. One of them is brand awareness. One of them is employer brand, and the other one is lead generation. So very clear, very distinct, but it gives us that kind of filter. So one of the examples of something that we've done now 2 years in a row, we're very well known for it, is what we have called the Winter Sprinter. So we created a video game. And this video game, they could jump over things and do various other quirky things, and they could win prizes. Each week they could win prizes in that, and they had to get to the top of the leaderboard. There was loads of gamification. It was amazing. And okay, so you think steel door company and video game. It doesn't align, mate. It doesn't make sense, does it? But the reason we did it was because it's about engaging with our customers, having conversations with them, and realising that, at the end of a day on a Friday, getting them to engage with our brand and actually have those touch points on something that is relevant to them. You think about the demographic of our audience, fitters, man in a van, technical people. They love some sort of game, and they love trying to find the hacks as well. Do you know, that was the biggest thing. There was a couple of people that clearly figured out a hack, and I don't know how they did it, but they were right at the top of the leaderboard, and it's just that technical mindedness.
Yes.
And so it's finding out the right thing for the right people at the right time, is quite common to say. But that was all about engagement of lots of different people within the chain.
So that really kind of worked. But when you first tried it, I guess it was a bit of a punt.
Yeah, I think I remember the day when I walked in and said to do a video game to my team, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. It's not the first time, it's quite common. I'll say something and they'll just look at me and think, really? Yeah, but I think I wanted to do something engaging. I wanted to do something at the end of the year to sort of thank our customers as well for their commitment. So we wanted to invest some money in actually doing that and giving them some rewards. I mean, the prizes were pretty significant. But then it was all about, how do we follow up? How do we generate leads from it? How do we capture information? So we got lots of data, which enabled us to reconnect with fitters, for example. We had lots of cards inside fitting kits. So it enabled us to kind of build those relationships with people that we may not normally do, kind of extend those touch points rather than just the individual that places the order in the office. We extended those touch points to a fitter, a quantity surveyor, an architect, lots of different points within the journey.
Interesting. So both brave and strategic coming together. Quite nicely. Are there any other kind of examples in that sphere that you look back on with pride?
Do you know, there's one, well, there's a couple actually, but there's one that was, I was thinking, because I knew you were going to ask me something about examples, so I did have to rack my brain. And there's one, that when I had my business, so hasten to think how many years ago that was, but it was for the Students' Union. Students' Union approached me, really small budget, and they just said, we're really struggling at the Freshers' Fair to get people to talk to us about the enrichment activities. What can we do? Like, we want to give some promotional items. What can we do? And I thought, and I just started asking about what is the journey of a fresher? Like, what are the pain points? What's the things that they have issues on? And talking to different people. And honestly, you're going to laugh when you hear this. One of the things was that the students arrive and they never bring enough hangers. Because when you get to the halls of residence, there is a wardrobe and there's only 3 or 4 hangers in there.
Yeah.
And so I thought about this, and it was just a passing comment. And you go home and you sort of sit on it. And I thought, why not be brave and why not be bold? We've got a small budget here, so I proposed a campaign that was "Don't hang around, get involved." So, and they put their faith in me, and we did the campaign. So we actually we gave away coat hangers with helium balloons attached to them. And the reason for this was because then all these students, and they didn't want one, they wanted loads because they'd just moved in and they couldn't hang the clothes up. And they hadn't been down into Wilko's yet. So they all wanted these coat hangers. So we had all these students walking around with coat hangers attached to helium balloons. So they weren't shoved in bags because the balloons were attached to them.
Yeah.
And it was just, and then we created little flyers that were coat hook shapes, and we hooked them on all the doors, and it said, "Don't hang around, get involved." And so I think that is probably an example of completely wacky. Imagine this, going to the university and saying, "I think you need to give away branded coat hangers." And at first they looked at me thinking I was
away with the fairies.
Away with the fairies. Yeah, that's a common thing people say. But actually, it was strategic because it was about making an impact. It's about almost like what we would now call guerrilla marketing. It's that environmental, experiential kind of campaign that cost very little. I don't even know if we branded the coat hangers. I don't know if we would put a sticker on them.
Yeah.
But obviously the balloons were branded. So simple, so easy, and just made such a big impact. And that is what I mean about bravery without strategy is reckless. If we just gave away coat hangers but didn't link it to the right campaign messages or link it to an actual need, if there was loads of coat hangers in a wardrobe for a student, that wouldn't have worked. So it's about market intelligence and kind of knowing your audience, being brave, but then knowing that that's going to have that impact.
Smart. I love it. So tell us about, we were talking earlier, tell us about using the 60-30-10 rule to balance tried and trusted strategies with bold, creative risks. What's that idea?
Yeah, and again, the first time, probably not the first time, but the first time it really landed with me, this kind of concept, was at that same seminar. And it really was, and I've got a feeling it could have been innocent smoothies, but don't quote me on that. But the basic principle of it is how you manage your budget and how you manage your time and resource, I suppose. What we talked about earlier was people slipping into the kind of tried and tested methods and the easy route because they know it works. And that is important. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. You know, we still sit there and do spec sheets, and we sit there and do brochures, and, you know, we sit there and update the website, and we do the basic stuff. And that forms your 60%. That forms your tried and tested methods of things that you know that work. You know, we give away lots of promotional items, and we don't change some of them because they work. You know, the water bottles, for example, everyone loves them. The hoodies, everyone loves them. You then move on to your kind of 30%, which is something that's tried and tested, but trying something new with it. So, for example, you might have a certain campaign message that really, really went really, really well on LinkedIn, or you did a direct mail campaign and really, really worked, but you'd not done it digitally. Yeah. So it's about kind of working with things that you know work. It's less risk, but it is testing. So I'm a big believer in fail fast, fail cheap. So again, because I have such a supportive, amazing team at Strongdor that just really let us kind of achieve these things and try different things without red tape, we can try something. So it is about trial little things, but with proven methods, really.
Yeah.
And then your 10% is the Bravery budget. And that's the fun bit. And that's the bit where you have all these ideas from these sort of marketeers that you have throughout the whole business. And I mean, I have this amazing sales director, Leon, and pretty much all his ideas fit in that Bravery budget. He does have some in the sort of middly bit as well, but he often comes up with some really quirky ideas. And again, that 10% budget allows us to do that and be brave. But we use the filter. We use the filter of of the why. You know, be bold, be brave, but always know the why is the real message.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just about splitting your budget in the right way, because if you put too much into Bravery, then, you know, you're taking a risk there and you know, you might lose in terms of lead generation. But by having a small budget where you can play with, that might slip into your 60%.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That conversely, if you just put 90% of it into the tried and tested, you're going to fall into that. You're always doing what you've always done, and you'll always get the same result.
Exactly.
Pattern. So, how do you balance short-term engagement, like the video game idea, with long-term brand building efforts?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because some of these things at first glance do appear to be kind of short-term gains, you know, lots of engagement instantly. A perfect example of that is we built an escape room on a stand. It was just, we wanted to do something, we always do things differently. I can't reveal what we're doing in the next show, but all I will say is check out our social media, because what we're going to do at Fire Safety and Fit Show in April and London Build is, pretty out there. So take a look. But we built an actual escape room, and I'm talking, we had lasers beams in there, we had locks, we had a safe that I got from an antique shop that they had to they had to build the stand around it because it was so heavy. It was a real old-fashioned safe, like it was on the Titanic or something. And so we built that for engagement. We built that as an experiential with timers and big buttons and loud sirens and everything. And that was about your short-term engagement with a customer and kind of building that relationship with that potential customer right from the outset. However, the way we built it was, a lot of it was our products. So it was related to doors or locks, or there was one of our new products in there was what's called a maglock, where you can press a button and the door opens, and that is a new product, and that was part of the escape room. So we basically took the innovative idea but combined it with the messages that we were trying to communicate. Yeah. And then it was really important that obviously everybody that attended, then we took photographs of them, we took their email addresses, and then we took a picture of them basically in front of the jail, because it was a jail theme. We put jail bars in it and everything. Yeah. And we took pictures of people, and then we sent it to them. So we captured their information, and then it was a kind of circle, if you will, because they then had an engagement with us because their picture was sent to them, and that's why they wanted to share their information. And it kind of starts off as something short term, but then it allows you to continue those conversations and build those relationships that are more long term and sustained. And I think then people now come to our stand because they want the quirkiness, but they've then built a relationship with us because they've started, this is the third or fourth time that they've come to the stand or that they've come to visit the factory or what have you. And they've come to sort of associate our brand with having fun, but also learning about our products.
It's a way of getting people to cross that threshold as well, isn't it? Because I've been to those big shows, and they're quite intimidating in a sense that, you've got all these people, that you don't quite know whether you're allowed to go across the floor, whereas you're saying, come on down, come on down.
We really do, and it's something that, we almost have like a pep talk before the show. It's almost like, I feel like we should do one of those chants that they do at the rugby, because it is important. And it's my worst frustration is where you go to an exhibition and people are sat there on their phones. So we actually have rules. So no phones, no drinks on the stand, no eating on the stand. And it's all about the customer. It's all about engagement. And, we have 50% of marketing staff and 50% of sales staff because it's about customer experience.
Yeah.
And it's just about building relationships and continuing them, because you're never sure at an exhibition, for example, where in the journey they are.
Yes.
So it can be somebody that's never heard of you. It could be somebody that's heard of you but is not a customer yet and has good potential. Or it could be an existing customer, and it's just about continuing that relationship. So it's really important that you have the kind of right atmosphere, the right things going on to support all those different parts of the journey.
It's interesting. I mean, manufacturing can be a very tough space for engaging certain audiences. We deal with lots of manufacturers and engineering companies, and the engineering mindset is very kind of straight line and detail focused. How do you connect with all these different moving parts and different personalities?
Yeah, really good question. I think always trying to figure it out. It is about understanding who you're talking to and what they're looking for and what they want.
Because some love that complexity, don't they? I know we've talked a lot about the kind of more fun side, creative side, but some love the spec sheets and want to drill into the detail of the latest, composite materials, etc.
Absolutely, and I think it is a balance. We always make those things accessible. I think it's about making sure it's easy to find, easily laid out, and kind of translated to a point.
Yeah,
you have different types of people that want. Some people want loads of information, and we provide that, separate spec sheets. Some people just want to know what sizes we can do, or, the kind of real basic information, and we provide that in different formats. So I think it's about making sure that when you're communicating the right information and the right level of information for different sort of people. So, for example, we do a lot with architects, and when they're at specification point, they need a lot of information. Yeah. We're listed on a system called MBS, so any manufacturing marketeers that are involved in specification will be very familiar with MBS, and that is very technical. That's a lot of information, and we have a member of the team that works on that. And also, for example, we're doing a lot of CPDs, so that's training to architects, but also to customers. And again, there's a lot of complexity in terms of regulations, in terms of kind of fire. For example, a lot of our products are fire safety. So with the kind of Grenfell disaster, there's a lot of fear in the industry. So I feel it's kind of our job to reassure and arm our customers and potential customers with the right information, which is why we sort of do, like sort of similar podcasts, and we do CPD and training activities and things. So it really is a balance between that kind of fun and element. And, we have days where we invite customers in, for example, and we'll do the CPD. We'll have a really formal business meeting. And then we've got a buzzwire, so we'll bring the buzzwire out, and then we give them all fish and chips. So it really is that balance. It's about not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
I think I think some B2B stuff can be too serious.
Yeah.
It's about how can we communicate something in a corporate way that's professional, but also doesn't take yourself too seriously.
Interesting. You've worked, as you said earlier, across both in-house roles like you are now, and you've owned your own agency. Has the mix of experiences shaped your perspective in a unique way, do you think?
Yeah, I think it has, because obviously with agency and client side. I think when you're agency side, and you'll probably agree with me now, coming from this side yourselves, but you can't be mediocre.
No.
So if you're trying to win a client, you can't go in and say, I think we should make a brochure, but instead of red, I think we should make it blue. You know, the client can do that themselves.
Yes.
They can make incremental changes themselves. They can come up with small scale campaigns or little changes. But in an agency, when you're pitching to a client, you have to be bold, you have to be brave, and you have to take risks.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, certainly when I was on my own, obviously back to right at the start of my journey, you know, I had my child very young, and I needed to put food on the table. You know, I was a single mom at the time, and I had no choice. I had to get clients. So if I just went in and said something mediocre and I didn't come up with creative ideas, then I wouldn't have won any business.
No.
So I think that really shaped me in terms of, coming up with ideas and kind of, just not accepting mediocrity.
What advice would you give someone in a niche industry who wants to bring more creativity to it? So, not obviously your competitors, but if you part of that, went into a different area, but in that kind of B2B world that's typically regarded as dry and a bit complex.
For me, I think it's about looking outside the industry.
Yeah.
I'm just not a big fan of looking at competitors, because if you're looking at competitors, you're kind of looking sideways or you're looking backwards, you're not looking forwards. And we obviously need to keep an eye on it. I get it. Competitor research is important. But for me, it's looking outside. Who are the really amazing big brands that are doing things really differently? You know, was it Currys that did that recent social viral video where they sort of used their staff, and but they've videoed the video being created. So you're going to have to check this out. But essentially, the member of staff, people were waiting outside to sort of in the thing. The member of staff went outside, threw a bucket of water on them, went back in, locked the doors. Obviously, they came running at the window, like banging on, what have you done? And she took a viral video and goes, we're nearly opening the doors. You know, look how busy we are. Absolutely rammed. And it was just brilliant. Because that is, you know, Currys sell laptops. I don't go to Currys very often, but they sell laptops and phones and what have you. But that was really funny. It was really, really funny, and it was something really simple. And I think if we don't look outside the industry, we're just going to do the same as everybody else. Don't get distracted by what other people are doing. Look and benchmark yourself against the best brands everywhere.
Yeah. So finally, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of the industry and of marketing at Strongdor in particular? I mean, especially you mentioned Chicago and the new US empire that you're building over there.
Wow. I mean, I think just working at Strongdor in general really, really excites me. I think, do you know, so my daughter's going into sixth form soon. She's just doing her GCSEs and she's had to pick her A-levels. And she said to me, Mum, I just don't know what I want to do. I just don't know where I want to go. And I said to her, darling, all you need to do is pick something you love. Yeah. Because if you can do something you love as a job, you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah. And okay, yeah, I do clearly do work, but I do love it, and it's not untrue. And I think it really does come down to, yes, you have to love your career, and you sort of think there, but you have to work for a great company. Yeah. And Strongdor are a massively no blame culture. They're very supportive. They're very growth orientated. Support any idea. You know, it's if a ball is dropped, I always say to my team, if we don't drop some balls, we're not going fast enough. Yeah. And the idea is that I should be there and the rest of the team are there with the net. We catch the ball and we all work together to throw it back in the air and we carry on. And I think if you work for the right company, then that is what happens. And it's exactly the example. You know, we're expanding to America. Nobody else is doing that because it's almost... The only comparison, the only similarity between the UK and America is that they speak English, right. Sort of. It's so different. Yeah. It's so different. It's. They might as well, you know, we might as well be going into China or France because it's so different. It is doing everything differently. So that's why I'm really excited to be able to take, a UK brand and make it global.
Yeah.
It's sort of understanding that globalization versus localization. That is the thing that really excites me. So for this year, it's a big challenge for me to understand which part of the brand and the secret sauce, as we mentioned before, which parts of that are relevant to the US and which parts are not. Because you can't just carbon copy, you can't take what you do in the UK and do it in the US, it's not going to work. So for me, it's really understanding that global culture, that kind of different environment, and how we can make the Strongdor brand global. It's really, really exciting.
It sounds it. I mean, where are you on that journey at the minute then?
Yeah, we are. We've got a manufacturing facility in Chicago, Illinois, and we will be shipping products, I reckon, about April. So we're very, very close. We're literally building the factory as we speak. I'm going over there again in about 4 weeks. We're doing an exhibition in Baltimore, near Washington. And it's very much kind of building up all of the assets that we need, almost like setting up a new company.
That must be great, getting in at the ground floor like that. But that obviously quite a challenge as well. What have you found that's been interesting so far? That lessons learned that you can...
Do you know, it is... We're an very established brand in the UK. So you would think that we had all of everything to go.
Yes.
But actually, it's like working for a startup again. And it's fantastic. So I pretty much split my time sort of 50-50 between the US work now and the UK. And, half the time I'm working on a sort of growing, UK brand. And then the other half the time I'm with a startup. So we're starting up the business and we are creating things from fresh, and we're learning. We're doing short print runs because we realise that, you can't say that because we don't say that in America, or we don't use that language, or we don't do this. And it's a very fast learning curve. I think I understand now why people don't take the jump, because it is so different. Yeah. And I think a lot of companies go over there with a mentality of, I can carbon copy.
Yes.
But actually, so Matt, the president over there, he's absolutely incredible, very open-minded, very driven about let's listen and learn and do things properly. Yeah. Making significant investment over there as well to make sure we do things properly. And I think that is the challenge. If you go over there arrogant that we've built this business in the UK, if you go over there with arrogance, then you're going to fail.
Fabulous. Sounds like a fantastic place to wrap things up. Sarah Cooper, Strongdor, all the best for the big American adventure, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to PR in the Real World. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast and leave us a quick review. Your support really helps spread the word and reach more marketing and PR professionals just like you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your colleagues or anyone who'd benefit from the insights we share. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for more tips, strategies and real world stories from the PR frontline.